It can really just be simplified in terms of you need a vertical row or pull and a horizontal pull. And then those will get you like 90% of the way there. Then you could add in additional stuff like this exercise where it's kind of a hybrid in between. Then you could additionally add in like some upper trap shrugs or some flies for your rear delts. Today's episode is going to be all about machine alternatives to some popular free weight movements for the back. We're going to be starting off with 3 sets of around 8 to 12 repetitions on the assisted pull-up machine, followed by a certain row machine variation, either plate loaded or machine, with around 3 sets of about 6 to 10 repetitions. And then lastly, we will be hitting a certain kind of like in-between pull, so not quite vertical like the original movement of the assisted pull-up machine, but not quite horizontal like a row variation. So something right in between so that we get all of the angles. Along the way, I'm going to be talking about the benefits of machines and why it may be a good idea in certain cases to be using these substitutions. And also be talking about some of the benefits in terms of we can use more intensity techniques, we can push it a little bit further without really messing with our recovery, and so on. So let's get into it. This exercise is, of course, a replacement for the conventional pull-up, which, of course, as you know, is a calisthenic movement, so it's a bodyweight movement. However, I think that bodyweight pull-ups can be very, very challenging, and especially when you start to add some weight, because you are lifting with your whole entire body. So whatever your body weight is, that is what you are lifting ultimately. But with an assisted pull-up machine, by adding weight to it, you're actually subtracting that weight from your body weight because it's kind of like a counterbalance of sorts. So by me doing like 50 pounds on here, instead of me lifting 220 pounds as my body weight, I'd be lifting more like 170, which is much more manageable. And on top of that, you can crank out a ton of reps with the assisted variation. And then I'm sure that you noticed, did a drop set. So I actually added weight after I hit failure so that I could crank out a few more reps, which just adds to the overall time under tension and stimulus of the set. Versus if I were just doing a conventional like calisthenic pull-up variation, honestly, I could probably only get like between 5 and 10 repetitions, which, you know, they're also going to be kind of grindy. You know, I'm going to be using, I'm going to have to really be working towards making my form of the utmost that it can be, the best form that it can be, so that I'm not swinging around a lot in space. And it can be very, very challenging, especially when you've been bulking for a long time. If you're bulking up, you're automatically just gaining more weight. And if you're not really constantly pushing the pull-up strength, you can easily exceed your body weight in terms of your pull-up strength, and then your reps are going to be going down instead of up. And that can be a real self-defeating thing. So I think that is where the assisted pull-up machine really, really shines. It allows you to really focus on your lats, really focus on your form, and get a ton of reps and really push yourself past failure in a lot of ways. If you are strong enough to do pull-ups, however, I would recommend doing a full set of pull-ups, and then you can hop on the assisted pull-up machine for that extra drop set stimulus. That would kind of be like the best of both worlds. But what I'm doing is a very close second. In terms of proper form, and this is the beautiful thing about machines, it kind of forces you to have proper form a lot in a lot of regards. Like, it's kind of hard to mess it up just because you're normally so locked into place. And they have diagrams and all that shit, so you can just kind of like do what it's showing, and just by doing that you're getting like 90% of the way there, in my opinion. So with this, you have the feet support, so you're not dangling in space, so it kind of removes a lot of the balance components, and then you're just focused on using your lats to bring yourself up. And it's all about how your body is angled while you're doing the exercise. So I kind of like mine like kind of just straight up and down, because that is going to give the lats a better line of contraction while you're doing it, so you can really just key into them. And I think that with a vertical pull, that's kind of what you want at the end of the day. However, if you did want to involve some other muscles, what you would do is you would kind of bring your torso back so that you're getting more of that like mid traps, low traps, rhomboid action in there too, by just changing the angle of pull. Additionally, I am making sure that my hands are just outside shoulder width. If you're going really far out, the range of motion for the lats is just this a little tiny piece, and it kind of ruins the range of motion. And I talk about it all the time on my channel. You really, really want that full range of motion in most cases, like 90% of the time. So I'm kind of having more of a narrow grip. You could take it even a step further. I believe that by supinating your grip instead of pronating it, you're obviously going to be adding in some more bicep work just because you're having more elbow flexion, but you're also slightly increasing the range of motion for the lats as well. So the only reason why I'm not doing it supinated is because I want to use more back instead of bicep. And by supinating, you're automatically going to be shifting more emphasis onto the biceps, but it is also going to be increasing the range of motion of the lats. So, kind of take that into account and see what you need to work on. If you want more of a bicep stimulus on your back days, maybe consider supinating your hand. You're also going to be stronger too, because the secondary mover is getting more involved. As far as training parameters are concerned, I think that this lends itself great to kind of like the moderate, like 8 to 12 rep range, or even higher if you'd like to do that, because it is so adjustable. Like what I was saying earlier, it's a machine, so you can theoretically add weight to where it's subtracting from your body weight all the way to zero. So you're just like flinging the weight around. So theoretically, you could do as many sets and reps as you want within reason. Of course, like anywhere over around 30 repetitions, you're going to be getting almost like very much so diminishing returns. You're not going to be getting as much a bang for your buck. And that's why I tend to gravitate more towards that like moderate to moderate high rep range for this exercise. And then of course, you want to be sticking to a 2 times a week frequency for any back movement. This is no exception. And then in terms of sets, I like to do whatever fits best in my program. I think that sets for given exercises should just be programmed in the grand scheme of things. I'm doing 3 sets here. I'm trying to aim for around 9 sets for my back today. So this is about 33% of my workout, and you could totally like modulate that. You could do like 4 sets here, and then like 2 sets on 2 other exercises for a total of 8. Or however you want to do it. And I think it really just depends on what you're trying to get out of your training program. I can't tell you that. I don't have that answer for you, in other words. For me, I want a little bit of both. I want that thickness, which is built by rows, and I also want that width, which is built by lat pull down variations of this sort. So I'm kind of doing a 33% split between each type of range of motion that I am accruing. Now you can ultimately choose any row machine variation that you want. There's a couple of parameters that I like to give myself when choosing one just for the most optimal results. So my main goal out of a row machine variation is to be locked into place and just to be able to focus on pulling with my back. And that kind of comes down to, do I have a chest support? Do I have a seat? Can I just be focusing on rowing, or do I have to focus on everything that's going on in here with your core musculature, your low back, all that jazz, in order to kind of support the weight? Because ultimately that probably will be the limiting factor before your back muscles give out. Your back muscles are very, very strong. And that's another thing. I use straps so that my grip doesn't give out. So I'm looking for a base of support, a chest support. And then beyond that, I just really want to be able to fully extend at the bottom and fully contract at the top. As long as I can kind of hit all those metrics and it's very easily loadable, then I think that I'm in the clear. I would also prefer some adduction of the arm just to get kind of some convergence so it's more natural towards my like innate arm path that I would prefer to use. This machine isn't really checking that box, but I'm getting 2 of the 3, so I'm happy with that. Now, in terms of the handles, I'm sure you guys noticed these handles are pretty gnarly. It's crazy. It's like this shape, which, it gives you a lot of options. So I'll kind of break down how I'm approaching the handles on this lift. The middle ones are kind of awkward to use, but they will kind of give you that more of a middle range, which will kind of hit all of your back simultaneously, but nothing in spades. Versus if you're hitting more of the top angles, then this is the arm path. And it really all does come down to the arm path. And my arm path is more out here. That's gonna be more mid traps, low traps, rhomboids, teres major. Versus if my arms are more tucked to my side, just by doing that, I'm sure you'll feel your lats kind of flex a little bit, and therefore your lats are going to be more primed to take over. So that would be more of the lower handles. But keep in mind, since the handles are so down here, and because of the natural line of curve with the machine, it's going to feel a lot heavier down there as well for this particular machine. But the same science holds true across machines. Unlike the previous exercise, I do think that this one does have a very real weakness. It's not including any low back flexion or extension, so you're not going like this. So it's not actually going to be working your low back. But for me, that's fine because I'm not trying to work my low back at the moment. I'm trying to get the most out of the rest of the muscles of my back as I possibly can. But if you want to work the erector spinae muscles, anything we're including back flexion and extension is going to be working it to a maximum degree because that is what those muscles are responsible for doing. So if you want to be working it during a row, if you want more bang for your buck, do like a bent over barbell row, do a bent over dumbbell row, do some like flexion, extension, machine rows, or you could even just isolate it by doing like a back extension variation if you would like to do that as well. But however, I would just like I just wanted to highlight that for you guys, that if you do decide to take my advice in this regard and you choose a machine that's more stable, you're not going to be really working the low back at all because you're so stabilized. So if your goal, if you need more back muscle hypertrophy, or you just want to work it for injury prevention's sake, then consider including those types of exercises into your routine additionally. Lastly, for this exercise, I do want to talk a little bit of ways that I could improve as a lifter, because after all, this isn't just educational content. This is a journey where I can improve. And hopefully you guys can take something out of it and help me improve and help yourself improve so we can grow stronger and become bigger together. So a way that I think that I could improve is, instead of kind of stopping at the bottom, even though I do kind of want that deep stretch, and stopping at the top, I can make it a little bit more of a fluid motion. Now, don't get me wrong, I still want to capitalize on that peak contraction and really get the most out of that stretch, but I think that I could take it a step further by making the movement a little bit more fluid in order to capitalize on the time under tension. Especially the bottom range of motion for this machine, it's easy to just hit the very end and have it be wrapped, and then you're not doing anything. And that's kind of a way that you can make the exercise easier, even if you're not intending to do so. So I think that if that's ever the case on an exercise, like for instance, the top of a bench press, once your limbs are stacked, you're not actually using your chest or your triceps anymore, for that matter. So by stopping like right shy of that lockout position, you're keeping the muscles engaged for the whole duration, which our muscles really only know tension. That's really all that they care about. So if your goal is hypertrophy and muscle growth, muscle size, then consider really capitalizing on the fact of let's stay in that tension zone. Let's stay in that like Goldilocks, that good area that we want. I'm choosing this as the third pulling variation of today's episode because it's kind of like a cross between the two. You know, with the first movement, we're totally vertical as you can get. With the second movement, we're totally horizontal as you could really get with the line of pull. This one, we're starting kind of like in that middle range zone, and then we're bringing it back like it's a row. So it's kind of like a hybrid of the two. And I think that back, people love to overcomplicate it, but it's really just about the angles that you're pulling from that will totally shift the emphasis from certain muscles of the back to others. There's a ton going on in the back, but it can really just be simplified in terms of you need a vertical row or pull and a horizontal pull, and then those will get you like 90% of the way there. Then you could add in additional stuff like this exercise where it's kind of a hybrid in between. Then you could additionally add in like some upper trap shrugs or some flies for your rear delts, and then maybe some some extension machines for your erector spinae. But all of that stuff is kind of like icing on the cake, so to speak, because at the end of the day, on any of these movements, you're hitting the whole gambit. It's just that certain things will be emphasized. Like with a vertical pull, you're still going to be working all the muscles, but it's going to be mainly highlighting your lats. So with a horizontal pull, you're still going to be working like your rear delts and stuff, but it's just going to be highlighting your mid traps, low traps, rhomboids, teres major, all that stuff for more of the thickness. So it really depends on, do you want more volume in terms of, do you need to work on a certain muscle group, say like your upper traps are lagging? You could totally throw in some shrugs, and then that would add in some additional direct stimulus for that, and it would totally make it grow way better. But that's not for everybody. So kind of pick your poison, figure out what you need to do, but just keep in mind, you only have so much gas in the tank in terms of, can you recover from this, can you not? So be sparing with what you choose. You may have to add in some volume in one area, then subtract from another. It just depends. this is one of those machines that is really difficult to replicate in nature. And what I mean by that is that you can't really like put a barbell up here and expect to be able to row it in the same way. You're just going to be fighting with your rear delts for it not to go all the way down. You could do it with like a cable machine, totally, but that's also kind of a form of a machine. So, you know, with the free weights, with your dumbbells, with your barbells, you can't mimic this exact movement pattern. Of course, you could get close. I mean, you could like set up an incline bench, go prone on it, and then have some dumbbells where you're rowing. That would probably be the closest that you could get, but that's more of just a horizontal row more than this, where it's kind of like a hybrid. So I think that this one can totally have some uses if you want to do the free weight variations as well. And then I'm sure that you guys noticed that I have a little intensity technique that I've been adding where I do it bilaterally. And then once I can't do any more of that, then I swap to unilaterally where I do one arm at a time. And that just highlights the benefits of machines that I briefly talked about earlier, where you can throw in some intensity techniques and have it work very, very well. Like I threw in some drop sets on the last 2 lifts, and it was just so easy because you don't have to get up, take off the plates, you know, swap out dumbbells, any of that. You can just go doop, boop, you know, you can just change it like that. So it's super, super easy and intuitive. And I think that, you know, if you guys are going to be using some machine alternatives for whatever reason, I think that you may as well take it a step further and highlight their capabilities in that regard. Okay guys, this is gonna do it for today's episode. It was all about some machine alternatives for some popular back movements. So if you're ever feeling like your recovery is down the drain, but you still want to go to the gym, this is a great little workout for you, where it's not going to be super fatiguing, but it's keeping that stimulus extremely, extremely high, because honestly, I wouldn't be sore from it. I know that I got a great workout in because my form was super dialed in. I felt like my form was great. I achieved full range of motion, had a great tempo. I did some moderate weights, but I still hit failure on every set, which is ultimately the most important thing. I didn't really end up hitting the exact metrics that I mentioned in the game plan section of today's video, in terms of I didn't do like 6 to 10 reps on the machine row. I wasn't even really counting for this one. And then I wasn't even really counting for the first exercise either. I was just kind of going towards failure. But I think that, you know, one of the main reasons why I throw on a repetition range is I have 2 reasons for it. First of all, it's just to ensure that I'm kind of like hitting a certain zone and I'm not either underdoing it or overdoing it. And also just because people like to have kind of a template that they can follow. So if anything, it's more for you guys. For me, the bottom line is, am I working hard during the set? If you're not really working hard, you're not going to get hypertrophy out of it. You'll get other things out of it, because working out at the end of the day is good no matter what. But are you really going to be achieving your goals? For me, that's a better body composition in my eyes. And if I am like not even getting close to failure, then I'm not doing it right. So even though I may have not hit the exact repetition ranges that I laid out in the beginning of the video, I don't care, because I'm getting all the way to failure and then some with all these exercises, because I'm adding in the intensity techniques at the end. So if you're ever like following a program and it says like 8 to 12 reps and you know that you can do 15, do the 15. That's if you were to take anything out of this video, I know it's kind of unrelated to the topic, but I think it should be that. But anyways, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow for the next episode. Have a good one.